David, we're here on the last day of COP11 here in Hyderabad. Have you achieved? Do you feel you've achieved everything that you set out to when you arrived?
I think so. We represent the island states of the Pacific, so 21 island countries are members of SPREP. We have 11 of the countries represented here, so we have a particular agenda which is trying to promote and see through some of the specific programs like the Island Program of Work, trying to build better partnerships. So this week SPREP has signed MOUs with UNEP and the Secretariat of the CBD, for example, and also looking at opportunities for raising awareness of the issues in the Pacific, because the challenge at these COPs, Ed, is that Kiribati has one person, Canada or the US may have 30 in their delegation, so it's not a level playing field. So what we try to do at SPREP is try to work as a team with all of the Pacific countries so that we can touch the bases, go to the relevant side events, working groups to push the points that are of interest to us.
What are the particular concerns in the Pacific? It seems to be a region that's getting more and more coverage, but for you, what are the key concerns?
Main concern is the issue of loss of biodiversity. The rates of extinctions of species, particularly for bird species, is the highest in the world, and we have an overlay in the Pacific of the vulnerability of many of the Pacific countries. The low-lying atoll in Kiribati, Tuvalu, other countries is the highest points 1 to 2 metre above sea level, so particularly vulnerable to extreme weather events, rising sea level. So what we're doing in the Pacific at SPREP, because we are the lead agency on biodiversity and climate, are looking at programs that link those two and what we call ecosystem-based adaptation. So protection of coastal mangroves can play a very important role as a buffer against sea level rise and climate change impacts.
The Pacific Islands seem so far away from anywhere else, but how are they being affected by sort of pollution from the rest of the world? There's a great, what's it called, the Great Plastic Swamp or whatever it's called in the middle of the Pacific. That seems to be something that again has got increased coverage, but give us an idea of how the Pacific Islanders are beginning to feel the effects of the rest of the world.
Well, there's major issues in our region. You mentioned the Great Plastic Garbage Patch. Google that one. I mean, that's an example and a symptom of a broader problem relating to the issue of waste, for example. But we're suffering, although the Pacific contributes 0.03 of the world's greenhouse gas. These are the islands that are going to go under first, so we're most effective. So we are pushing strongly in biodiversity and climate convention debates to recognise the special case and to look at taking practical action to address the problems that we do face.
Is there a danger in the next 10 years that some of these islands will become uninhabitable? What's the timeline you're looking at the moment?
Well, it's hard to say. I mean, some of the islands already are suffering major impacts, particularly from events like king tides. So in the 50-year period with a predicted sea level rise of 30-40 centimetres, that places a lot of the islands at grave risk. So at SPREP we're looking at helping countries on a range of practical adaptation strategies, how to better conserve and manage fresh water. As the sea level rises, we have saltwater intrusion into the freshwater lenses, vital for drinking water. In some cases we are looking for options of relocation. So that may be from coastal communities to higher elevation places. Where there are very limited options, there are actually discussions taking place with other countries in our region like Australia, New Zealand, as to what we can do for that. So we're looking at all options are on the table. We're looking at practical responses. We're calling on the international community to help. And particularly in the context of biodiversity, we're looking at how we can use biodiversity-based solutions as a key tool to adapt to climate change in our region.
And I mean, in terms of this particular conference, what gives you hope? Have there been any initiatives that you look at and think, well, you know, that's positive? I'm thinking of marine protected areas might be one you might comment on.
Well, in our region, there's 3 programs that are particularly relevant. The island program of work, which is very relevant. Marine and coastal is a key issue. Our region covers 1/3 of the Earth's surface, and of that 2% is land. So issues relating to marine and coastal are vital. The countries of the Pacific have made major commitments. We have the world's largest natural marine World Heritage Site in Kiribati, the Phoenix Island protected area. We have in the Marshall Islands the world's largest sanctuary for sharks. These are major commitments by least developed countries. So these, if you like, gifts to the earth. So we are looking for support from the international community. So that's one of the areas that we are promoting, the fact that there is a lot of very exciting initiatives in the Pacific. They're of benefit not just for the Pacific region but globally. The Pacific is one of the great common heritages of mankind. We all have a stake in it, and increasingly in a geopolitical sense, Asia Pacific is becoming very important, and at the core of that is the Pacific.
And in terms of your influence on this stage, in this arena, how would you assess that? We know that the Association of Small Island States have become increasingly important, perhaps just as a kind of from a moral perspective, telling people this is the issue in the climate change arena. In the CBD, in this conference, how would you assess how influential the Pacific Islands states have and can be?
Well, I guess a 4 out of 10. I think we can always do better. We work better when we work together. So, as I said, SPREP works on behalf of our members. We are a bloc. What's important in the UN context is votes, and the Pacific is that's 14 country votes in the UN system. If we link with Caribbean and Indian Ocean, as we've done through AOSIS, that's 40 countries. That is a very powerful bloc. Yeah, as you know, Ed, in the climate change, AOSIS is more prominent, but there are also regional alliances here as well in the biodiversity context.
And we can tell from your accent you are an Antipodean. How supportive are Australia and New Zealand of initiatives to protect the Pacific Islanders? Because perhaps I'm thinking the climate change arenas, they're 2 countries that have been, I'd say, lukewarm on adopting stringent emission targets, the kind of targets that we need to stop sea level rises.
Yeah, I guess there's the what happens domestically, but in the region, both Australia and New Zealand are government members of SPREP, as are France, the United Kingdom, your country, and the government of France, and Australia and New Zealand through their ODA. They do provide major support to SPREP. In total, probably about 30% of our budget. They support, particularly Australia, climate adaptation programs that we partner and link with some of our own programs, such as the UNDP GEF Pacific Adaptation to Climate Change project. So they do play a role. I have no comment on their domestic policies, but within the region they are a valuable partner.